he was elected as the president of the Students' Union of University of Ibadan, the first Igbo person so elected, and the only Igbo person so elected till date. I also want to point out that he was appointed Minister for Civil Aviation of the Federal Republic of Nigeria by President Shehu Shagari at the age of 31. And today, all of us here stand tall with pride each time he's on a podium, each time we see him on TV, each time he's speaking for the Igbo nation worldwide in his position as the President General of Ohanaeze Ndigbo worldwide. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is now my honor and privilege to invite Ike Ndigbo Niile.
Please be seated. But let me first of all thank Mr. Patrick Okibo and Mr. Nwodo, the two of the many leaders of the organization that promotes this Ndigbo called NKATA Umuibe, for inviting me to speak at this September edition. This NKATA Umuibe has become a veritable platform to recollect our fundamental characteristics as a people, revise and regurgitate our history, and promote Igbo language, culture, and way of life. It has also provided a lacking platform for mentoring and for effective social and economic interaction of our middle-class elite. Let me also express my gratitude to the leadership of the Enugu Sports Club for partnering with them in this commendable venture. Ever since Mr. Ben Etiaba became president of Enugu Sports Club, the trajectory has changed. My father was a member of this sports club when I was in primary school. I watched Julius Caesar in this very hall as a student preparing for school certificate exams. I watched Macbeth in Presidential Hotel Premier Club. And the pictorial illustrations of these Shakespearean works aided me tremendously in understanding the text for which I was to be examined. And needless to say that I made A in English literature. So Etiaba, I'm sure that next time we do this, you must target students of our universities around and graduating students of our secondary schools, because that's what mentoring is all about. Some of them will be stimulated by what they hear here to aspire to higher heights. Today I have been asked to speak about Iheji Maru Igbo, which literally means the core of Igbo values. Put in another way, it could be called the fundamental Igbo characteristics. I would have preferred to give this lecture in unadulterated Igbo, but I'm worried, because I expected the young to be here, that those who need it most are unfortunately weak in Igbo comprehension, and so may not follow my trend of thought in Igbo. However, they also need to learn Igbo. In the circumstance, I have chosen to speak, and I hope you do not mind, both in Igbo and English language. This will enable me to partly translate and partly portray the rudimental value of the characteristics I would like to highlight in this discussion. Under normal circumstances, speaking about the core values of your people is like an ego trip. One is expected to glorify our values and justify them. I shall, however, adopt a contextual approach which will not only highlight the core values, their origins and usefulness, but where necessary, highlight the need for their reform or abrogation. For our discussion today, I will highlight 4 of Igbo core values, namely the Igbo family. 2, the Igbo thirst for knowledge. 3, the Igbo industry. And 4, the Igbo bravery. I begin with the Igbo family. Birth, marriage, and family are intertwined in Igbo culture. This is because marriage in Igbo land is a contract between 2 families, but with the conjugal rights exclusively exercised by the 2 persons who become husband and wife. No legal marriage can be concluded in Igbo tradition without an agreement of both families. Birth is a byproduct of marriage. Therefore, we must deal with family, marriage, and birth together. Membership of a family in most parts of Igbo land is confirmed after birth by a ceremony called in most parts of Igbo land as Itongwanani. This is a ceremony by which the newborn child is laid on the bare earth, a floor, naked, so as to enable the child's skin touch Mother Earth in his ancestral home. If the paternity of the child is questionable, this right is not accorded to the child. Another ceremony which is carried out at the birth of a child is the naming of the child. In the olden days, this ceremony performed by the oldest member of the family is preceded by another ceremony called Ibafa Gogo. This entails consulting a fortune teller who, through his incantations and divinations, receives a spiritual notification as for what name the child should bear. This is usually the name of one of the living or dead relations of the child's father or mother, or close friends or relations of the family. If it is the name of a dead person, the child is assumed to have reincarnated the dead person. Because of the pagan practices associated with Ibafa Gogo, these days a ballot is conducted in many Igbo Christian families who have interest in preserving this tradition in order to ascertain which member of the family the child would bear his or her name. What is the reason for this naming culture? Should it continue to be preserved? Ideally, it would appear that most Igbo families do not enjoy forgetting dead members of their families. They regurgitate them in naming ceremonies and keep their history alive by naming their newborns after them. When these deceased men are popular, you notice a desire to see the newborns named after them, walk in their path, promote their values, and expand their fame. In a way, it imposes a shadow for the newborn to walk in. For deviant children, this is a restraining influence from turning irresponsible. It places a burden of an enviable and lofty height to attain. It leaves an old and diminishing story of valor, fame, humility, or hard work, fresh and everlasting in the family. Associated with birth are other rights like Omugo and Ituobo. You know that, as I said, marriage is a contract between two families. When a woman gives birth to a child, by Igbo custom, her mother, if she's alive, must go to teach the child, if it is the firstborn, the rudiments of bringing up a child. So she must transfer her residence to her son-in-law's residence. But it doesn't stop with the first child, because a woman who has delivered requires some period of rehabilitation. And during that time, the mother is a very useful hand. Now, this is not negotiable. Any mother who does not do it is seen to be unresponsive to her traditional responsibilities. It's very painful for fathers, because when your wife leaves, it's not the same. For those of us that our wives have left interminably, onyere nsogbu. Now, nke ọzọ bụ nke a na-akpọ ịtụ ọgbọ. N'omenala Igbo, nwoke pụọ okorobịa, o nwere ife a na-eme gosiri na ọ pụrụ okorobịa. Obodo niile nwere omume dị iche iche eji eme ịtụ ọgbọ. A na-edupụta fa n'afịa, fa na-eto egwu, a na-agọrụ fa afọ na fa pụtago okorobịa. Na be anyị Ukeghe, a na-alụpụrụ fa ụnọ n'ọnụ esi abata be nna fa, some distance away from the obi. The reason is that there are certain things a young man does that must not be in the presence of his father. I know that many of the people in my generation here would know that in our time as young men, you could never admit or exhibit that you have a relationship with a young woman. It was intolerable. I never invited a girl to my father's house until I got married. And even when I got married and my wife came for the traditional Izoku, my mother insisted on sleeping with her. And I wondered, how do they expect me to get to know this woman? And yet I'm not expected to be with her. My senior brother, the first son of my parents, when it was time for his wife to return the calabash with which we went for the bride over the engagement, we came home, and one afternoon he invited his wife to his room, or his wife to be, and they were having a chat. My mother walked past the door to the room over 10 times, listening to know what was going on there. When it became unbearable for her, she went and called my father and said, "We must open this door." And said, my father said, "Why are you worried? Can't these children talk to you?" She began to knock at the door. My brother shouted, "Come in, who is this?" They opened the door and found both of them sitting and chatting. And my mother, as if to conquer the shame of raising a panic before my father, said to Joe, you know this room that you are sleeping in. Bishop Okoye has slept in this room. Bishop Eneje has slept in this room. Oburo ni room muba mama ebu Josephine ki ga-emebi room a. Ịchọ na gị na nwa onugbu ga-akpa nkata ụnụ apụta na palọ kpa nkata, ị na-anụ ife m na-ekwu jo. Like birth, Marriage is a very remarkable tradition in Igbo land. As I said earlier, this is not just a union of two constructing partners, but of two families. Once marriage is contracted in Igbo land, both families owe themselves mutual social and traditional obligations. When I went to Abagana to marry, my father-in-law, John Wanku, said to me, na njeko ka esi ejekọrịta na njekọrịta ka esi atọ na ụtọ ka esi atọta ife. I was looking at him and wondering what this philosophy was all about. Ọ sị na mụ na nna anyị nọ na NTNC. Nna anyị bịara ebe a meelu m campaign as chairman of Onitsha Urban Council. Bịa ebe a meelu m campaign as federal member of Federal House of Representatives. Ọ na-abụ ọbịa tọọ as minister of local government. Ọ nwunye m na-esi nne mụ na ya na-eri na Catherine Rest House. Mana o nwere mgbe m ji wee loo n'uche m na a ga-emekata nwa m na nwa ya bụrụ di na nwunye. Ya ka m ji si na njekọ ka esi ejekọrịta ma njekọrịta ka esi asọ ma ụsọ ka esi asọta ife. Mana ka m gwakwa anyị nwa m gboo ntị ndunye ya nwa m etu a ntị mụ ya ka m na-amụzi. So m bụ nna ya mana ị ga-abụkwa nwa m. Ife niile m tụrụ anya na nwa m ga-emerụ m ị ga-eme gbadoro m fancha nke kwere ya ime. Mkpọ ya oku zam na-erubere m isi ka isi erubere nna ya. That for me was a lesson on the concept of mutual obligations in marriage in Igbo land. Put in another way, ndị be anyị si na ọbara jeko abụrụ ofu. Ndị be anyị si na ego bụ ikwu etọ. Anyị nwere ikwu nne, nwee ikwu nna, nwee ikwu agọ. Ndị be anyị si na otoro gbuo ego jege ibe ego. Otoro bụ cholera in Ikwehe dialect. In the olden days, it was a contagious disease. When somebody dies of it, people run away from him. But in our traditional culture, when you die of a contagious disease, it is the responsibility of your son-in-law to bury you. Why? Adele mmadụ na afịa. Onye nechara idunye nwa ya kpọrọ gị nwa ya. The greatest honor a man can give you is to bequeath his daughter to you. When he bequeaths his daughter to you, he shares part of himself with you. Above all, he gives you a lifeline to procreation. Consequently, you must respect and honor him as if it was divinity honoring you with those gifts. Sometimes fathers-in-law are not very deserving of those respects, as they may be very provocative. But the challenge is to have a tenacity for endurance so that you do not derelict in giving your traditional respect. Weaved around birth and marriage is family. Family is so fundamental in Igbo land that people identify you by the traits of your family. The Englishman says, by their fruits you shall know them. As I grew up, no member of the family who lives in the city returns home without a bottle of gin, then golden gin, tobacco head, and a cow for the head of the family. All family meetings are held in the home of the head of the family. His decision on all matters affecting the family are final and must be respected by all. Although he is enjoined to listen to and respect the popular views in the family, except where the issues under discussion are doctrinal or traditional and admit of no dilution or adulteration. You see, when you touch family tradition, when you touch cultural tradition, the head of the family is the custodian of tradition and culture. And his oath of office does not allow him to compromise on them. My father used to say to me that to compromise on matters of principle is to sacrifice principle itself. Whenever you sacrifice on the authority of the father or the mother over his child, at the period of his formation to say, this you must do, you have given up the principle and the training. My father said to me that if you want something and I say no, it is either that it is not good enough for you or you have not convinced me that it is good enough for you. I am God's representative in your life. What I say must be done. Our generation, this is how we were trained. Now, the reverence for the eldest member of the family is reflected down the ladder. Every member of the family is expected to respect and revere his senior. Kola nuts, drinks, land, and other common assets of the family are shared in order of seniority. The women here may ask me, all right, kola nuts, land, where do we come in? Whenever they share land, they don't share, they don't give us our rights. Whenever they share land, we don't get it. This is a very controversial issue, and that it admits of some discussion here. Because this issue has led to a case emanating from Anambra State High Court through the Court of Appeal to the Supreme Court, in which a mother and the son expropriated the property of the father, the deceased father, without allocating any portions of this property to the daughter. And the daughter took them to court. And Justice Rhodes Vival, in his lead judgment in the Supreme Court, pronounced that Igbo traditional law of inheritance contradicts the section of the Constitution that deals with freedom from discrimination and is hereby struck down by the Supreme Court. Those were his words. Now, what is the extent to which the Supreme Court of Nigeria has struck down Igbo traditional law of inheritance? For instance, my father's first child is a woman, Grace. His first son is a man called Joe. Does the Supreme Court decision mean that Joe will give up my father's traditional home to Grace, who is married in Nguru Nsukka and will be buried there and never come back to K? But supposing we were both, suppose my father was from Okunano or Nike or Ogui, which is in Enugu metropolis. And in spite of the fact that his home is traditionally our traditional home, the urban character of the home makes it a serious commercial property. Now, does it mean that Grace will sacrifice a right of first choice to Joe in order that Igbo tradition must be respected so that the first son must inherit his father's house? Is it right for Grace to insist that having been married to the Obais in Nsukka, where she enjoys rights as a wife and right to her husband's home when she is dead, when he is dead, should abandon her husband's home and still come and take another one in my father's home and have a double share? Can the Supreme Court be so unjust and unequitable that a son who doesn't have to marry elsewhere and inherit in his in-law's house should be deprived of a share in his father? These are issues still for determination. But I think that it is important. I do so for anyone I write a will for. It is important to bear in mind that you must be equitable in the distribution of your assets. A daughter is as important as a son. I do not see how I can enjoy my father's property to the exclusion of my sister, who may need the rent arising from this property to look after her children when I don't need them. It doesn't make sense to me. Why should she suddenly become a persona non grata because she's a woman and not entitled to my father's investments just because I'm a man and she's a woman? And let me be frank with you. I mean, I have only one son. And I have 3 daughters. My daughters care a lot more for me than my son. Quite honestly. And in my father's situation, I know that my sisters cared more for him than us. My sister Grace, when my father was bedridden, goes to spend weekend with him. She cooks food to take to him. Now, I never liked seeing my father sick and bedridden. I couldn't have the patience to stay there long enough. Otherwise, I would betray my masculinity. I'd probably cry. So, Papa, are you okay? Look, I'm going to this kind of place. I'll come back to see. I hope your drugs, I hope you don't need anything else. And he doesn't even bother to bring you back. But Grace will shave him. Grace will give him a bath. At a time he had incontinence, Grace would use a Macintosh to sew around his mattress so that whenever he could not control his urination, there was no smell in his room. She could clean it and change the bedsheet and put another one and so on. No man has the patience to do this. She would perfume him. And why should a woman suffer so much and get nothing in return? Now, this Supreme Court decision in regards to Igbo customary law of inheritance is a serious wake-up call for our women folk. It is telling you not just that you have rights in your father's house, but you have responsibilities. So, wake up to your responsibilities. This in traditional insistence and respect for seniors in our society is fast disappearing in today's Igbo society. I have seen instances where young ones sit at functions or in churches while the older members of the society stand. When we were children, you were slapped for doing so. There is no way you could be sitting down when somebody older than you is standing up. It doesn't matter if he came late. As President General of Ohanaeze, I have had to stand up for very old people many places. And on each occasion, I have had so many people volunteering chairs for me. Only when I stood up. Because I saw an old man coming with a walking stick with difficulty. The fact that he came to the ceremony graced the ceremony. And he was looking around and nobody was ready to give him a chair. I volunteered my chair. After he sat down, other people began to stand up for me. And this is what they call eye service. This shouldn't go on. It takes nothing. It's so because you will get there one day. And it is a fundamental Igbo custom. And I don't know why our young people find it difficult. In fact, when you go to a place where you are supposed to stand on a queue, young people come and overtake you. And I just look at them. All that occurs to me is that these people have no home training. It's like when I go to church and I notice two things. One, a child who walks around the church, it doesn't matter if she's infantile, but who walks around the church without restraint, distracting people with impunity. You control a child when he's minor. You lose that control, then it's finished. And when he gets up, you are the target. I just see the mother as a bad trainer. Each time I see it in the church, I just say, Nnia. And sometimes the men are just there looking hopeless. So I think that it is important that we should drive it home to our children. Some people, because they are important members of society, want to bring their children to a function. And they are, because they are important members of the society, given a front seat. And they want their children to sit next to them. I don't know what they're advertising. A child who doesn't know what being important in society is, who has not worked for it, who has not earned it, because you are important and you're brought to the front seat, you carry your wife and your entire children to come and sit there. And it's irresponsible. The child should sit at the back and watch and count his time until it is God's benevolence to lift him to the front seat. I have also had and experienced situations where rich members of the family override and sometimes overthrow the paternal authority of the oldest member of the family. This is wrong and must be resisted at all costs. Now, it's a pity that the very young people are not here today. But there is something I thought I should say to them. But because there are a few of them here, I should say it. Today, the young people are losing some of our traditional values. First of all, I am happy that there is IT development, there is social media, and communication is rapid. But addiction to it is a dangerous phenomenon. I see very many children, including my own children, carry their telephone, always in the social media. When they come home, their mother will be in the kitchen. They will just using the telephone. Early in the morning, they won't even go to say good morning to their father or to their mother. On the telephone. Their mother will be mopping the floors on the telephone. Their mother will be cooking on the telephone. She'll be washing clothes on the telephone. Daddy will drive himself when you can drive on the telephone. It's not how we were trained. I was privileged as a child. I was born the year my father won election into the Eastern Nigerian House of Assembly. I grew up to see my father as a parliamentary secretary, as minister, a parliamentary secretary for health, minister of commerce and industry, minister of local government. But I went to school in Iva Valley, a remote area of Enugu. And my classmate was the junior brother of my father's driver. There was no school for the minister's son and another one for the driver's son. And so you had to pass. When we sat for entrance into college, you had to pass. When we went to CIC for entrance, the entrance was written in the morning. The results were given in the afternoon, so there was nobody lobbying for you. And the interview was held in the afternoon. When dormitory was allocated, the next person to me was the son of Dr. Imoke's Audley. Dr. Imoke was Minister of Education when my father was Minister of Local Government, and his Audley son was sleeping next to me. There was no question of where you came from. Now, because of these things that they write on WhatsApp, that's how they write us notes or SMS, we can no longer assess our children's educational ability. I remember as a child in CIC, we were at Assembly Hall, and Brother Aloysius said, John Nwodo to see me immediately after Assembly. And I was like, when your name is announced at the assembly ground, it is suspension or rustication. I went through memory lane, wondering what I had gone wrong in order to deserve my name to be announced in the assembly. And I went to the principal's place. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, when I was coming to this lecture, Honorable Minister of Labor came to my house. And I told him that I was coming here. And he promised that he will join us at this lecture. Please welcome Dr. Chris Ngige, former governor of Anambra State and Minister of Labor. na Ndigbo si na afọ nze ebe okwu. Igbo leader. When he was president of Aki Kenga, all of us who were his friends called him Igbo leader. It became his other name. So as I was saying, I stood by the principal's office until I was invited. It turned out that I was not going to be rusticated. But my father had requested the principal for the best students in chemistry, physics, biology, and mathematics to teach in his new secondary school, Premier Secondary School in Uke. And the principal called me to tell my father to bring a car on the day they were taking their last paper, because he has got similar requests from St. Patrick's Emene, St. Patrick's Uboleke, and so on. But that my father had made the request first. And so he thought he should tell him to bring a car so that they would not be swayed, because he had talked to them and they had agreed. I was so excited that I was not going to be rusticated that I didn't have the concentration to say to the principal, can I have a permission to go to the secretariat during the break and tell my father? And you could not leave the school compound without permission at that time. When I got to my class, my classmates were very anxious, and I told them what happened. And that while I was coming here, I just realized I don't know how to tell my father this, because I can't go out. A classmate of mine, John Waterali, may his soul rest in peace, he said, I have a stamp and an envelope. Another offered me a writing pad. He said, the postman hasn't come. Write your father now. He will get the letter today. So I quickly wrote my father. My principal, Brother Aloysius, has asked me. In between my principal and Brother Aloysius, I didn't put a comma. Now, if I go to my father's house now and to his study, there is my file there. I can read every letter I wrote my father throughout my educational career and even after that. And now I insist my children should write me letters rather than email and all that kind of stuff. So my father put a comma between my principal and Brother Aloysius and turned the back of the full writing pad and said, my principal and Brother Aloysius refer to one and the same person. In grammar, this is called noun in apposition and must be separated by comma or parenthesis. Do you understand? Question mark. Now, this is not all I want to say to the young ones amongst us. In our time, we were never tired of being a helping hand to our parents. My father had a farmland in Uzuwani. I went with my age mates to farm there. We lived there for 2 weeks. At the end of the war, every Igbo man had 20 pounds. Irrespective of what was in your account, so long as you paid him money there or withdrew money. But my dad was particularly lucky that he had a savings of 10,000 pounds. And as the war was breaking out, and Brother Aloysius and the Maris brothers who were in CIC were returning to England, he took his passbook to Brother Aloysius and said, my son is studying in England. Please pay his school fees, but don't tell him it's my money, so that he will be frugal with it. I believe the rest of us will be dead in the war. So here is my savings. Brother Aloysius could not take the 10,000 pounds. He took only 4,000 pounds because he also had money to repatriate, and he had a foreign exchange restriction as to how much he could carry. But there were no cell phones. By the time we came back, my father didn't believe that he had any money left. And he didn't attempt to go to the bank during the war to look for that savings. A Mr. Ogwejo, who was accountant in Union Bank, then Barclays Bank, then came to my father and said, Igwe nekwani nwere ego na bank anyị. It turned out to be 6,000 pounds. My father and I came to this Okpara Avenue to a place called GB Olivant. We bought a Mercedes lorry 911. We took it to Tinker and we put the wooden bag behind it. And when they finished the work, the driver and I took it to Kehe. My mother killed a big chicken. It was the greatest thing to kill then. And he reserved the gizzard and some of the legs for my father. And of course, we got a little slice of it. So, as they were having a good time in the veranda and eating, my father was congratulating her. Now, Ohanaeze, Cecilia and Nnia can go to university. You have done very well. My father said, "Upon the driver, can I balego? Makano ego no when atal can ma abata n'ụzọ. Mụ na ya oge so moto wee je. Osiamba na ụtụtụ n'ụtụ na ya ga-akpọta fada ka o duo ya n'iyi. Na ọ ga-aṅụrị ya Bible." My father laughed. Osiana onye zuru ori ka a na-akpọ na court ọṅụcha Bible ma kwuo okwu asị. Na ndị be anyị kwere na Bible nwere ife ọ na-eme mmadụ. They didn't know I was eavesdropping them. In the morning, I decided to go and follow this 911. So I went to my father. My father, from the war, he listens to BBC, Voice of America, Radio Nigeria, and so on. So before it is 8 o'clock, he has heard the news from the whole world, focus on Africa, and all those things. So I went to him as he was listening to the news. He said, "Papa, good morning." I said, "Good morning." He said, "I'm sorry to disturb you. Man, actually, I'm son down at Ugwausa." I said, "Kere to again on your parifa." He said, "Na okwa no gwa okwa mu no munnem. No bu na me soro fa na ya me enwe revenue profile. Ndị driver ga-eri ego moto a." I said, "Yes. Mana mama ya me ekwe." He said, "Papa, oge na anu mama ka mama na anu gị." Mana oge abụgonu m lieutenant na army. And then when the audacity to say this to my father, he didn't answer that question. Osi na mgbada ana na mama m ga-eme everything to stop me. Simu kwusie m ike na ana. Simu sekpuru ana ka ya kpere m ekpere. As he was praying, his voice became heavier, and I see he was combating tears. I finished and left him. Mgbadata na ana, buru akpa mgbadata. Mama wee fum si mebe ka nneje. Nse na mụ na ndị a eju Hausa. Si jeburu akpa dobe dị otu ebe ka na-eju Hausa. Nse na eso mfe eju Hausa. Na ọ bụ ka nje akwụkwọ ka m na-eme ka mụ na ụmụnne m jee akwụkwọ. Osi m so na papa m achọgo ka o were nwa ya kpaa ego. Hey, wee lachapụ mkpuchi amama na ị ga-eje confession. So na conductor na driver na fe nwere mpa na papa. Na gị na di ga-eji fa kpaa ego mana unu ama-eji nwa nke unu kpaa ego. Hey, nsị amama na amakwa m na etu aka mama m dị. Anya m ezagbochisi anya. Osi m si na njike ebe. Nsị anya si efe eje. Osi m oke m bịa ka wa gbago n'elu ka ya kpere m ekpere. Nsori ejebe na room ya. Abata na room ya olozo ife ọ kpọrọ m. Nsị amama na-esi m ka ekpe ekpere. Osi m m chere o meghe wardrobe, o bute akpa nke onene, o bute akpa nke omene. Ọnụ katazia wepụta ofu ọgwụ nwa n'ime akpa ya. Si m jide ọgwụ a. O nwere nwa ọ mụrụ ị na-afụrọ na-eji nya bụ ọgwụ na akpa ya. Ka nji nya bụ ọgwụ na ya. Ọnyaba m ya n'onu. Osi m na Jesu ga-akwụ m n'aka nne na Virgin Maria ga-akwụ m n'aka ekpe. Na onye siri ka ọzọ ụmụnne na ife amemie n'ụzọ. Anyị na-apụzi. Mama na-agba ọsọ na-eso 911. I refuse to look back. Ma ndị mụrụ afọ anyị si m n'ọsọsọ anya mmiri, sọsọ anya mmiri na-apụ ya n'anya. Anyị gba Lafia Akwanga Bukuru Jos Mubi Maiduguri. Anyị na-agbụ ya jụọ wee nọdụ n'obodo oyibo wee nụ na anyị na-balance 500 pounds every 2 weeks. Maka onwere moto na-ebuta m from Ugwu Awụsa, onwere onye akọrọ ebe a. Moto niile gbara na Biafra mebichara emebi. Jụọ wee gotere anyị Volkswagen bus. Ya na Ogalije Felix Okoye, who were both writing, may his soul rest in peace, writing their PhD. They went to Netherlands and bought a Volkswagen bus. Ebute the Volkswagen si papa kan nyakwa nka can set a revenue pattern. Every 6 a.m. I will go to 9 mile. Even native 9 mile or to put intention is on your door. Or to go by air. Behind home delivery. He will be able to so. What the young do not realize. Bunangiga bugolo governor, bulu senator, bulu minister, emegifa. Ụfọdụ n'ime anyị elegolu anyị na nna anyị ife n'afịa. ụfọdụ n'ime anyị ka akpọbara afịa na coal camp anyị ejeela elfa. But the people of today will not do it. Nneru nwe ya na-esi ada anwụ arịa unless mo sekpuru ana. Ndị kita amaro na na-esekpu ana. What it takes your parents to take you to the zenith of your ambition is a lot of sweat and deprivation. The worst thing you can do to them is to show lack of appreciation. I see it in my own children. I'm not using any of you as an example. You were born with golden spoons in your mouth. Ọkwasịrị ụmụ ya na-etoro ji gotoro mgbọrọgwụ osisi ka ọ ga-abụ onye nwe ji buru ji ka ịma na-eri mgbọrọgwụ osisi. Nke Igbo m chọrọ ikwu bụ thirst for knowledge and excellence. Another, Blyden, Edward Wilmot Blyden, an educated son of a freed Igbo slave, had by mid-19th century acquired sound theological education. Born in St. Thomas in 1832, he was one of the founding missionaries that established the Archbishop Vining Church in Ikeja. In a frontal rebuttal of Femi Fani-Kayode's claims that Yorubas were Nigeria's intellectual progenitors, a distinguished Igbo scholar, Dr. Samuel Okafor, lists the following Igbo achievers. President J.J. Royal of Liberia, the third Liberian president, a man of Igbo descent. Professor Chikobi, first Nigerian professor of mathematics, who solved Fermat's last theorem. Professor James Ezilo, professor of differential calculus and founder of Ezilo constant. Professor Kenneth Dike, the first Nigerian professor of history, who published the first account of trade in Nigeria pre-colonial times, and the first African vice chancellor of my alma mater, the University of Ibadan. Professor Eni Njoku, the first Nigerian professor of microbiology and the first African vice chancellor of the University of Lagos. Professor Chike Edozian, professor of anatomy and physiology and current Asaba of Asaba, and the first professor of anatomy at the University College Ibadan. Professor Koye, who was the first Nigerian professor of physics and professor of physics at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology in 1960. Professor Alexander Animalo, who was nominated for Nobel Prize for Physics 3 times for his research in intermediate quantum physics. Professor Frank Ndili, who gained a PhD in his early 20s at Cambridge University in nuclear physics and chemistry. Professor Adichie, Nigeria's first professor of statistics. Professor Cordelinye, Nigeria's first professor of medicine, appointed professor of medicine in University of London in the year I was born in 1952. Professor Ntukogo, Nigeria's first professor of astronomy. Professor Okonjo, first professor of demography and population studies in Nigeria. Professor G.D. Okafor, a holder of a double PhD in mathematics and economics, a PhD holder in philosophy, who became a professor of philosophy in Amherst College, United States of America in 1953. Professor Pius Okibo, who became a visiting scholar and professor of economics in the University of London in 1954. This list is not exhaustive, as the likes of Professor Chinua Achebe, Professor Ben Wabweze, outstanding and globally recognized as professors of literature and constitutional law, did not even make it. Also missing is Justice Dade Onyama, Nigeria's first judge at the International Court in The Hague. I can go on and on. But Ogini Batalo, Anjiji Bundiana, Eji Amatu na Mota, Okwa Nuchulu. My late grandmother, my father's mother, oge afọ anyị na-eje holidays, anyị ruo ebie onye nkuzi abịa kuziere anyị akwụkwọ, onye anyị homework, onye nkuzi naba, mama ejide itari ka ọ fụ na unu ada arapụ homework a ịtọkọtasị mama ka ije nye ọma mmiri osori ije ncha mma mmiri chiata ọsị ịgụba ife asị ịgụba ọsị nwa m Na akwụkwọ bụkwa n'ọrụ nya fụrụ mmadụ na-ada alụkwanyere mmadụ. Na ogige eji aka eri ya gị lụrụ ya. Nsi kedu ka this old woman gba n'illiterate ji wee malụ na mame agụcha chapter 1 site n'Igbo ji biko gụgene m chapter 2 ka nje pụta na mpụta ka mana ọ bụrụ na ugbo ka anyị na-akọ enwere m ike si ka m kpọọ mkpụrụ ọrụ ofu site n'ibiko ka ọrụ m nke ịbụọ ka nje ozi pụta. There is no substitute for learning. You have to bury yourself in it. Ọ kịta ka a mụtara na assault onye jee university ọ chọọ ka ya kwụọ lecturer ụgwọ check lecturer chaa ka ị nara ụmụaka ụgwọ ọ bụ na idere ụdị lecture andel ije were 10,000 print many copies at 20 naira ịpụta lee fia inweta 50,000 ofu aka iji wee nara ụmụaka ego ka Chukwu ga-esi wee narị nke ka n'aka ekpe. Ọ na-ele isi na abụọ ụmụaka na-eje ka unu sọtọ lecturer ka unu nweta degree. You will never be able to defend your degree. The society has become extremely competitive that you cannot be employed in any place of note in Nigeria today without being able to defend your degree. You cannot even start a business and be productive and progressive without your capacity to be ingenious and to bring new ideas which other people do not have. So, if you want to take scholarship as your way of life, you must be ready to be industrious, tenacious, painstaking, patient before we begin to cite your name like the names we cited here today. The other thing I want to mention is Igbo industry. It is not only in academic achievements that Igbos pursued excellence. In the pursuit of trade, crafts, and skill acquisition, Igbos have distinguished themselves creditably. Domestically, there is no part of Nigeria where, apart from the indigenous population, Igbos are not the second largest ethnic group inhabiting the area. They acquire land, live and trade in those areas. Over time, they and their children speak local languages fluently in those areas and even contest for elective positions. Recently, a few deviants have tended to taint Igbo reputation in areas where they live. The story of a notorious kidnapper in Lagos and the gun-trotting drug peddlers in South Africa have tended to give the impression that Igbos are criminals. This is far from the truth. The cattle rustling Fulani in northern Nigeria, the cult activities in western Nigeria, and the murderous Fulani headsmen rampaging the Middle Belt have shown that we all have minority shares of citizens with condemnable deviant tendencies whose misdemeanor tends to characterize us. Even though I must confess that I do not consider the Fulani headsmen as acting on their own volition. Because of this, we must as parents watch closely and carefully the kind of occupations our children are engaged in, so as to forestall early their stray into diabolical and criminal endeavors that may negatively characterize us. We must watch our conspicuous consumption patterns like lavish burials, weddings, and parties that portray us as people with no value for modesty. The pain in these atrocities engaged in by a minority of our people is that they tend to lead to a wild generalization in our categorization. Let me say a little thing in Igbo about this. Nnia, onwere mgbe njel ugwu Hausa, mụ na ndị be anyị nọ n'ebe njel wee nwee nzukọ. Ofu onye na-akpọ onwe ezi Igbo n'ebe afọ wee na-ekwu okwu wee sị m that he can acquire skills very easily and quickly is obvious. That he is prepared to go through a suffering or deprivation to achieve success is demonstrable. What is limiting is mirage. Firstly, Igbos do not trust each other enough to found business combines. You very often find millions of Igbo traders importing the same brand of goods which if they had combined together to manufacture, would earn them more profits, limit their exposure to huge losses, and grow our domestic economy. Secondly, our home governments have not united to have a common policy of promoting Igbo industry. Such common policies will encourage industrial parks where power and gas supplies will be provided at subsidized rates. It will also promote trade-free zones where low taxation is encouraged and implemented for goods produced for export. The combined effect of these industrial layouts is to cheapen production costs and attract our businessmen to invest at home and help in developing our homestead. Ebe m eje na ana m ekwu maka akụluo ụlọ. Mana adị m happy na ngige nọ n'ebe a. Ife ya akụ ga-eji wee luo ụlọ bụ incentive. Ndị dịka anyị na Peter Obi na ndị bugoro gọvanọ na Ohanaeze, ọ dị mma unu nọkata unu abịa ka unu na ndị gọvanọ anyị nwee meeting. Experience is not the exclusive preserve of any one man. And the experience you will me share here with ụmụnne onwuru. Many people become governors without previous experience or tutelage. And you cannot blame them if their breadth of imagination is not wide. Mana ndị brilliant amongst them atụala ọmalụ. Oge ọkpara na-achị alụrụ industrial layout n'ụzọ Zik Avenue. Alụrụ na-emene. And the whole essence was to enable development. Nekene Tinka, how long it has existed. Ibul moto eje ego efe na Tinka, so also go slow n'ime Tinka bụ something else. What stops us from moving Tinka to some other place? What stops us iji obodo ebo na asụ so ịchọ ige taya ime wheel balancing ịbanye wele electronic device mere ya ijewala onwe edition ife mere the correct. What is so difficult in doing it? In an industrial layout where there are standby generators, where there is solar power energy to power minimum facilities, where effective taxation is obtained to ensure that the place is maintained. What is so difficult about it? Kedu ife bụ onye chọrọ ime mai na o nwere ike iburu beans je n'ebe dị clean? Kedu ife kpata na ọkpara nwere abattoirs under Eastern Nigerian Development Corporation na Zik Avenue ebe a ịchọ igo beef ma pork ị na-esi nkwere ezu n'aka ebute pork. Anyị na-egro local beef muturu cow in Eastern Nigeria at that time. And elie na Zik Avenue. Iru ewe eriye igolu. But now it's not possible. And ebe afọ na the air conditioned. Mbanugo was chairman. We didn't need any white man. Bob Wago was general manager. We didn't need any white man to run it for us. And it was running successfully. Why is it that it's so difficult to do this? Ore, why don't we forget government? Can't a few businessmen do this? Is it so difficult? Why can't we crossbreed Muturu cow and Brazilian cows and fatten them? When I was a child, University of Nigeria was growing cows in Nsukka. University of Nigeria had greenhouses. I have a greenhouse in Uke. I harvest tomato every 3 months in Uke. Jonathan, the campaign speech, see, he didn't have shoes, he didn't have school bag. If I can do it, you too can do it. What is the difficulty of doing this? We just cannot come here every month, Okibo and Aimude, and talk about ideas without a framework for catalyzing them into action. Because we don't trust each other. If each one of us parts with between 5,000, 10,000 to 1 million to build an agricultural interest, run transparently, and people see it's working, many more such combines will come. And there is no developed country in the world that has catalyzed, developing country that has catalyzed into a developed country that was not powered by the private sector. Every day we blame our governments. There's very little they can do. They can only provide an enabling atmosphere. by taxation, allocation of land, freedom from taxation, power supply or water supply. But increasingly, many industrial enterprises generate their own electricity. They provide their own water. And if you go to major countries of the world and look at blacks who are there and making things happen, Nigerians are there. And in the main, they are Igbos. We too can do it. So, let me come to the last value I want to canvass. Igbo bravery. In the Bible, each time you go to a funeral, when the men come to dance, the character in the dance is bravery, chivalry, capacity to stand adversity. Boy line. Na bendo ogya o take at egwu tell am say ala na Chris na etegwu etu. But all that step was to show I am a man. Obrokwa nke Swazibazi, ma Swazibazi in South Africa, amen a play. Ke meketa discrimination na South Africa, meketa asi nwoke be anyo mamri, ije ebe ndo anya chara anu mamri, asi na anyo mamri eba, na ebe ndo ji na okukata ji na ti na emezi ko na abro nwoke ni abro. O say I am a man. The play ended with him unzipping his trousers to show that he is a man. That kind of bravery is not the bravery we are looking for. The last value I want to highlight is bravery. In 1803, one of the largest suicide of enslaved people took place when Igbo captives from what is now Nigeria were taken to Georgia coast in the United States of America. In May 1803, the Igbo and other West African captives arrived in Savannah, Georgia on the same slave ship called the Wanderer. They were purchased for an average of $100 each by slave merchants called John Cooper and Thomas Spalding to be resold to plantations on nearby St. Simon's Island. The chained slaves were packed under the deck of a coastal vehicle called the York, which would take them to St. Simon's. During the voyage, approximately 75 Igbo slaves rose in rebellion, took control of the ship and drowned their captors, and in the process caused the grounding of the ship in a place called Dunbar Creek. The sequence of events that occurred next remains unclear. It is however known only that the Igbos marched offshore singing, led by their high chief. Then at the high chief's direction, they all walked into the marshy waters of Dunbar Creek, committing mass suicide. It's called the Dunbar Creek suicide. Onye Igbo kama ya ga-abụ oru kama mmiri die ya. This bravery, this willingness to make the supreme sacrifice rather than be humiliated still runs in our genes. Ongine esirimuni kaka oha kame isi mmadụ. It is the product of a training which abhors capitulation in the face of humiliation. It is a training that encourages suicide rather than submission. I see it sometimes still playing out in the face of our inhuman and degrading treatment. My advice is that the instruments of disputation have become refined and modernized. Diplomacy, public enlightenment, litigation, and civilized protests have replaced sheer bravado in the face of heartless oppressors. These alternatives may contain our congenital bravery. Having outlined our various characteristics, values, and having tried to highlight the ones that should be encouraged and sustained, the question is, what should we do to grow and sustain our beneficial core values? I think the first thing we should do is to encourage the speaking of Igbo language. Every parent amongst us must try to make the speaking of Igbo language at home compulsory for our children. To speak in Igbo internalizes the cultural values. It expands your cultural range. It gives you a double sense of reasoning and logic. You think in Igbo and think in English at the same time. All these give you a greater advantage in comparison to those who only speak English without an English cultural base. When you speak English, but you don't understand why the words are used the way they are used and what they really mean, that base rationalizes the language. You know, I tell a man and how down to earth he is when I visit him in his village when he's doing something and see how he relates with his local villagers, how he adopts to them. Anụ ọbụla nwere afa, enwebe enwe, enyi bụ enyi, nkịta bụ nkịta, onye bụ mmadụ ga-eme ka mmadụ, onye bụ Ọnịcha ga-abụ onye Ọnịcha na-asụ onye asụ Ọnịcha, onye bụ onye Uke ga-abụ onye Uke na-asụ Uke. Mụ na ị pụọ ma gba nwoke na-agba, ọ bụ na ngụgharị egwu ọ na-agụ, ị ga-asị na m ejere akwụkwọ. Anyị abịakwa mala otobi ike ngeleze nwachọ bụ n'ikpo ehureze abụmọ nara gị mụ nwa na-adị egwegirigo nwa mụ kpọkwada na NKATA mụ shada gị mụ told folk songs. And those folk songs, it always tells a story like Nnia maka. Ndị anụmanụ gburu nnefa n'ọra, gbuchasịa nnefa ọsachiri ama egbu nne, ọsaji egbu anụ a na-akpọ katakombu. Katakombu yiri nnọọsa, o wee welu nne tọgbọ n'elu akwụ. Nwa anụmanụ mechasịa nzukọ kafa si gbu nnefa, fachiata ọtajie n'ukwu akwụ ọgụbalụ nne egwu. Osnosa trarosa une gereru nosa anamana gburu n'eveloba une gereru nosa osabue katakombu yiru nosa ọtụpụrụ ya ụdọ rigo o jerie nni edobere ya. Wee kụziere anyị no the value of a mother. Ụmụaka jee kafa jee ikute mmiri n'iyi oge afọ. We used to trek 3 miles to go and fetch water. A child forgot ife ụmụ anyị na-ekene ukwu na stream. Ọ nata mamụ ya si ejezi na chi ejigo na ọ bụrụzi mmadụ nọ n'iyi nọ ndị mmụọ. Onupulu ma mịa esi. They taught us that it was disobedience. Olue ebe a ekeyi wee rie ya. Nwanne ya wee chekọtasị ka ya jee chọba nwanne ya si anyị eje na okechia. Olu ebe a ọ na-agụ na-enye achọkọnya nwanne ya sele me nwanne ya bịa chọkọ n'ogubi iyi sele ma ogubi iyi bịa chisi na mkpụmị iyi sele ọ bụ koroma were lenye amaghị sele ọ bụ koroma were lenye amaghị sele ugwu tọji sele alagara manya sele ọhụụ o sele. How many of our children can sing such folk tales? And each one of them has an ingrained cultural lesson. And all this highfalutin language we speak, all this wealth we acquire, without a culture leaves us without a personality. If you have no personality, personality is humility. Personality is service. Personality is respect. Personality is industry. And they are all ingrained in our culture. This learning that I have talked about. Onye na-adịrị umeala ada amụta akwụkwọ. Onye na-enwere ndidi adịrị amụta akwụkwọ. Onye na-arapụrụ mmanya na ịchụ nwaanyị na ife ndị ọzọ na-atọ ụtọ ka ya wee gote akwụkwọ ama agụta akwụkwọ. Nne m okenye si na mmadụ ama agụrụ chapter 1 gụọrị chapter 2. Ọrụ akwụkwọ bụ ọrụ mmadụ na-adịrị alụkwanye mmadụ. So it is important that we make Igbo language important. The second thing we must do is to try to Christianize some of our cultural usages so that a convenient reason for boycotting them is no longer available. I will shortly be engaging our traditional rulers and Christian clerics on this subject. The third solution I propose is to change the trajectory of our educational curriculum. Not only must Igbo become a compulsory subject in primary and secondary schools in Igbo land, we must massively encourage IT education in all our schools, retrain our teachers, and input Igbo language into our hardware lexicography. I may not have covered all the Igbo core values in this short speech, given the time allocated for this lecture. But I hope that I have provoked a discussion which will enable us put on the front burner the necessity to rediscover, treasure, and promote who we are and be proud of it. I thank you for your kind attention.